UK scientists begin developing vaccines against new pandemic-inducing disease, which they call Disease X. Right in time for you to go and get those mail-in ballots, but we will talk about that, what's happening there, and also the renewed fear in the COVID as well. So we'll go over some of that, what that means, and how that affects us going forward. John Bolton threatens that in a second Trump term, we'd almost certainly withdraw from NATO, and most of MAGA looks up and says, okay. But we'll talk about that and why John Bolton is coming out and being in the spotlight for everything once again. Elon Musk says he will pay the legal bills for anybody who is unfairly treated by X. And a bunch of people come in to try to tell their story. We'll go over some of that. And, yes, of course, new developments in the Trump... Excuse me. New developments in the Trump cases. So, we'll be going over that and what's happening there. Unfortunately, that will be the majority of the show because that's where all the meat is. But we'll get through the juicy stuff early. It is going to be all of this and more. You've got me in a sway, and I want to swing you down. Now you sailors know where your women come for love. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Man, do I hate allergy season. It's one of the weird things, too. Like, everything's going good, everything's going fine. You sit there and you talk, and you start to talk, and all of a sudden, all that sneezing that you did on that fantastic hike you had earlier on today comes and catches up with you, and the tickle gets in your throat, and like, oh, crap, and I'm on the microphone, too. I do apologize for the cold opening. That was, completely unprofessional, but we do have a lot to get to today, so we're gonna get right into it. It was definitely a busy news weekend and a busy news day too. Like what I'm looking at and what I saw develop. Like even if this was just a one-day thing, I think we would have just about as many stories up on the stack today. Because most of what I pulled came from today, so we'll be talking about that. Eileen Cannon getting into the mix, questioning whether or not the grand jury is valid to have the trial in Miami, because it was a DC grand jury that was the one that was looking over the Mar-a-Lago documents case. We'll be talking about that. Change in venue coming off of that. I mean, again, like I said in the top of the cold open, it's going to be a very, very heavy Trump day, and I'm sorry for that, but that's where the news is going, and that is what's going to affect what's public policy is going to be for the next probably 4 years. So we'll be talking a lot about that, unfortunately. At the tail end of the show, if we get through all the Trump stuff in a hurry, I've got some funny stuff about Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, because it appears it's going to be game on for that one, and we'll talk about that towards the bottom of the show. And yeah, Disease X, that's going to be the next thing. Just in time for an election year, too. Isn't that funny? Come on, laugh. You're supposed to laugh at these things like that because there's no way in hell we could possibly think that they would do this again, right? Right? Alright, but we're going to get into it. Let's get started. Before we do, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys, Tweets by Brit, Mr. Behavior, The No Gimmicks Podcast, Silent Caster, Clown World Chronicles with Papa Palpatine, and Overruled with KTZed. Go check out all that great programming as we aim to bring you a better news experience and culture experience as well. From the common man for the common man. That's right. Stop getting your news and your culture from people who hate you and people who wear suits that cost more than your house. Get your news and culture from people who are just like you. Something new is actually going to be coming in the works here, by the way. I don't want to talk too much about it until I actually have a working title for it and something coming here. But I will say this, after listening to some culture war things, and I've not been much in the culture war, but I was listening to a couple culture war podcasts while I was hiking yesterday and just sitting back and thinking to myself, man, I miss having conversations with people. So I want to do something that's just completely non-political and have conversations with interesting people. No working title yet, no nothing like that, but something will be coming down the road. I enjoy sitting here and talking to the microphone by myself and controlling everything that goes on and playing with the live chat and everything, but I started doing this because I wanted to have conversations with people, and I have not done that in a very long time. So something new is coming down the pipes. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about what's going on with that and where that goes. As more develops from this, there may be a chance that this is all going to be audio only too. So we'll see what happens with that and where this goes and how we do this from there. But let's get into the news. Let's get started. And let's start with finance, with the Dow. Looking at your Dow for the day, your Dow is sitting at 35,473.13 on the day. That is up 407.51 points, or 1.16% on the day. Looks like, I know this is always really, really weird for me coming back and redoing what I just did, but it looks like it has erased the losses that we had throughout last Friday for sure, but almost entirely erased the losses from last week too. Bring ourselves back up to 35,473.13. The peak, of course, is at 35,679.13, so we've still got a little ways to go. And I mean, you are winning right now technically if you have your 401k or something that's dependent on the Dow, but I would argue again that we should be much, much higher than where we are at with that. So that's what we're seeing from that. We should see a 40,000 Dow right now, definitely. Looking in at your Bitcoin is sitting at 29,137.30. That is up 97.3 US dollars, or about a third of a percent on the day, bringing ourselves back out to the 5-day. It does look like there's been some major shift on the 5-day, but we're more focused on the weekend here, where it looks like we sat steady for the vast majority of the weekend before taking a wild swing downwards and a wild swing upwards, ending the 5-day down 26 US dollars and 90 US cents, but definitely having a rise on the day today. So congratulations if you have a Bitcoin, which, I mean, if you've got a whole Bitcoin, share the wealth, but even if you have a little bit in Bitcoin, congratulations, you are winning right now. Looking at the gas prices for Madison, Wisconsin, which I really hope that some of this translates over to where I live, because I just put gas in at $3.69, which is lame. I definitely just put gas in at $3.69, and I hate that. So it doesn't look like it's keeping up with us at this point, but that's what we're sitting at with that. $3.30 out on the east side, $3.30 on the west side, with $3.50s on the isthmus and $3.46 outlier coming out on the west side as well. $3.69 though. It went up here and it went down in Madison. But we will continue to watch one single market and see where it goes and what happens with that. Check your local listings to see what your local prices are at, but it does look like you will possibly have some reprieve going on in your gas prices. Let's look in at the finance articles of the week, and let's bring the live chat back up here so I can see if I am muted myself once again. I hit $30 for a full tank and I own a Prius. That's interesting. Alright, on CNBC, futures are a little changed Monday after the S&P 500 ends a 4-day losing streak, from Brian Evans. Futures hovered near the flat line on Monday night. Futures tied to the Dow added 2 points, or 0.01%. The S&P futures added 0.01%, and the Nasdaq fell 0.02%. Earnings season continued, shaking up the select names, and after-hours trading, Palantir added 0.3% after the company posted a 13% increase in second quarter revenue. Educational tech company Chegg popped 25% after reporting second quarter revenue of $183 million, beating analyst estimate of $177 million per Refinitiv. During Monday's regular session, the 30-stock Dow surged more than 400 points, or nearly 1.2%, for its best day since June 15th. The Nasdaq added 0.6, the S&P closed higher by 0.9. The tech-heavy Nasdaq and the broad market index broke 4-day sessions of losses. The corporate earnings season has so far been better than expected. Roughly 85% of the S&P 500 stocks have reported near quarterly results, and nearly 80% of them have beaten Wall Street's expectations, according to FactSet. companies set to report results this week include UPS, Under Armour, and Rivian on Tuesday, as well as Disney and Wynn Resorts on Wednesday. The good news is that the earnings trough recession is likely coming to an end, with earnings growth expected to accelerate over the coming quarters, said Dylan Kramer, co-chief investment officer at Certuity. Looking ahead, earnings projections seem a bit lofty to us relative to our revenue growth estimates, particularly starting in quarter one of 24. On the economic data front, traders are looking ahead to July's Consumer Price Index report. Out Thursday, the inflation metric could put Wall Street's belief in a soft landing to a test. Economists polled by Dow are calling for a monthly increase of 0.2% in July and a year-over-year rise of 3.3%. So it looks like, the investors are going to look at their earnings. They're not going to necessarily look at what's happening among the rest of us. And with the layoffs and with everything else, it does seem that earnings are staying lofty somehow. Screw everybody else, but earnings are staying lofty. And that's where everything is going to go. Of course, our friends on the left are going to tell us that the Dow is absolutely the economy, which it never has been. And I've been consistent about this. But that is what we see coming for that. And our layoffs report from CRN, the channel company. Dell confirms sales layoffs as part of a new partner-led storage strategy. From Orion Johnson. Dell Technologies has confirmed it will cut jobs among its core sales teams as it adopts a new partner-led go-to-market model that pays its direct sales force more to sell storage products through the channel. Some members of our sales team will leave the company. We don't make these decisions lightly, and we will support those impacted as they transition to their next opportunity, a Dell spokesperson said. We're always assessing our business to remain competitive and ensure that we're set up to deliver the best innovation. This is like a perfect example of what I just said about the fact that our Dow is up in spite of the fact that we have layoffs and our economy is crap no matter what the Biden admin tells you. Because these companies like Dell can continue to hold very high earnings when they go back and lay off big swaths of their employment. Dell will not confirm whether these layoffs are part of or in addition to the 6,650 job cuts the company announced in February. Partners said they see the layoffs as a chance to double down in Dell and drive sales growth. This is very positive news for the channel, said one partner who did not want to be identified. Dell can't afford to run the same sales model the way they have been. This is more of an opportunity for the channel. They're counting on the channel to drive growth. Bob Benero, president and CEO of Future Tech Enterprise, a Fort Lauderdale, Florida-based Dell global titanium partner, said he does not know anything about layoffs, but applauded the new partner-led storage go-to-market model. So that is what we are seeing for that. More layoffs for tech, more layoffs for Dell, and I bet you their earnings are going to go back up too. So that's what we see coming for that. Let's start into our main news of the day, and we're actually going to stay slightly finance focused here, but this is political, so we'll go into this. The first story today: a lawsuit is filed to stop new student debt relief plan from Lexi Lonis. Ryan, welcome. Moga says Dell is laying off, but I heard Budweiser PR team is still hiring. Nice. All right, so there's a correction here. The new Civil Liberties Alliance is challenging the Biden admin's forgiveness of student loans for more than 804,000 borrowers. The nature of the legal challenge was incorrect in an earlier version of the story. The new Civil Liberties Alliance filed a lawsuit Friday against the Biden admin's new student debt relief plan. The lawsuit comes after the Department of Education said it would have canceled the student loans for more than 804,000 borrowers, totaling $39 billion. Not turtling. I mean, we could make poop jokes on this channel if I wanted to, but it's not turtling. I like turtle! That is like one of the oldest videos on YouTube, and I only saw that for the first time last year, by the way. The forgiveness comes through an adjustment under income-driven repayment, and the borrowers in question have been paying on their student loans for more than 20 years. The NCLA, on behalf of the Cato Institute and Mackinac Center for Public Policy, filed a suit in the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Michigan to stop the implementation of this plan. The NCLA is arguing the plan violates the Constitution's Appropriations Clause, which allows the Congress to be in charge of what debt owed to the Treasury can be canceled. The Biden-Harris administration is fighting every day to fix the broken student loan system and to make sure borrowers get the relief they earned, need, and deserve. The lawsuit is nothing but a desperate attempt from right-wing special interests to keep hundreds of thousands of borrowers in debt, even though these borrowers have earned the forgiveness that is promised through income-driven repayment plans. An Education Department spokesperson said, "We are not going to back down or give an inch when it comes to defending working families." Under IDR, borrowers get student debt relief after making payments for a certain number of years. The core of the argument in the case is if the department is allowed to count years where a borrower was in forbearance or deferment, therefore not making payments on their loans. NCLA is arguing the department would have had to go through the negotiated rulemaking process and offered a public comment period to implement the action. In the Nebraska case, the Supreme Court struck down the Department of Education's brazen attempt to pull a billion-dollar elephant out of the statutory mouse hole. I'm kind of turned on now. This time, the department's loan cancellation scheme does not even pretend to have statutory mouse hole, said Sheng Li, litigation counsel for NCLA. The Public Service Loan Forgiveness and IDR statutes require borrowers to make a certain number of monthly payments before earning forgiveness. By trying to count non-payments as payments, the strategy seems to be to cancel $39 billion faster than a court can review and stop this blatantly unlawful act, Lee continued. NCLA says the plan would allow the debt to be canceled for 2.8 million more IDR borrowers in the future. Instead of promulgating the plan through the required notice and comment and negotiated rulemaking process, under the Administrative Procedure Act, the department would simply issue a press release that did not identify any laws to justify it, the NCLA wrote. The challenge comes as borrowers will be set to begin repayment on their student loans in October, with interest starting up in September. So, a few things that are coming. Now, number one, I can full on say that if it was for forbearance, deferment, etc., I would actually probably qualify for at least the public portion of that. But most of my stuff is held by private companies, so the Biden admin is going to give me the middle finger, as it will for many, many borrowers. Like, anybody who's gone through, like, what are some of the big names out there? And I don't necessarily want to give away what mine are, but I know, like, Great Lakes is one of them, Sally Mae is one of them. There are plenty of them out there where they're all held in a private stock. And none of those are actually eligible for any of this. So that's one thing to look at as we go with that. But I think the biggest thing and where the NCLA is pushing this for is trying to get this done through Congress, not through the executive branch. Whereas with the Biden admin, it seems like they're trying to pull everything through executive order because they don't have the Congress to do and pull their agenda. Mogwai says, Mitch McConnell hears you scream turtling and thinks you're talking about him. Yeah, he probably froze up when I did, too. Sugar, it's so hard to fit an elephant in a mouse hole. I tried it and it hurt for a week. God damn it, Lindsay, you, says Mogwai. And Insider with a follow-up here. Conservative group filed a lawsuit to block $39 billion in debt relief for 800,000 borrowers on income-driven repayment plans from Eilert Sheffy. NCLU, yes, we know that. That one. The same groups also challenged Biden's broad plan to cancel up to $20,000 in student debt for federal borrowers, which the Supreme Court struck down at the end of June. Despite its massive expense and impacts on the legal rights and obligations of millions of borrowers, the department did not promulgate this policy through mandatory notice and comment and negotiated rulemaking procedures, the group said in their complaint. Instead, it used a press release that neither identified the policy's legal authority nor considering its exorbitant price tag. The complaint added that the relief would harm the group's recruiting efforts because it would make the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, which forgives student debt for government and nonprofit workers after 10 years of qualifying payments, less impactful for job candidates. They argued that as nonprofits, unlawful cancellation of student loan debt reduces the amount of borrowers' PSLF cancelable debt, and thus reduces the amount in which PSLF benefits qualified employment. So, few things moving with that. I'd be interested to see where this goes. Definitely. Because this could go either way. If I remember correctly, the IDR is a congressionally approved program that was done under the Obama administration. I would have to go back and fact check myself on that. Which means that this is a congressional thing. But now the decision of whether or not to include forbearance or deferment times. Or one of the things that I would question whether or not the Biden admin would do, given their constituency, is if they would sit back and count default time too. I don't know. There's a lot of questions here. This is going to be interesting to see in Discovery, so we'll see what happens with that. Let's talk about Disease X. From disclose.tv, to start with, new British scientists begin developing vaccines in high-security laboratory complex against a new pandemic caused by an unknown disease X. Per Sky News, which we have on deck to read from. Just in time for an election time, too, by the way. Sky News reporting, Disease X, UK scientists begin developing vaccines against new pandemic, from Thomas Moore. I'm a little surprised that it's 21 degrees in Australia right now, because they're having their winter at this point, aren't they? That seems high. Now, mind you, I don't read in communist numbers quite as quickly as I read in American digits, but that still seems a little bit high for their winter time. We could sit and do the calculation real quick. To Fahrenheit. Yeah, it's almost 70 degrees in what they call their winter. But that's not what we're here to talk about. Thomas Moore reporting. UK scientists have begun developing vaccines as an insurance against a new pandemic caused by an unknown disease X. The work is being carried out at the government's high-security Porton Down laboratory complex in Wiltshire by a team of more than 200 scientists. They have drawn up the threat list of animal viruses that are capable of infecting humans and could in the future spread rapidly around the world. Which of them will break through and trigger the next pandemic is unknown, which is why it's referred to only as Disease X. Sky News was escorted around the site, which is run by the UK Health Security Agency, to see the work being done in high containment labs. Professor Dame Jenny Harries, the head of the UK Health Security Agency, told Sky News, "What we're trying to do here is to ensure that we're prepared if we have a new disease X as a new pathogen. We have done as much of that work in advance as possible. Hopefully we can prevent it as a pandemic, but if we can't and we have to respond, then we have already started developing vaccines and therapeutics to crack it." The Vaccine Development and Evaluation Center, Porton Down, has been expanded to take on the work. That is a tongue twister. Porton Down. I wonder if it's easier to say in a British accent. Porton Down. Well, perhaps. Originally, it was focused on the pinko pox and testing the effectiveness of vaccines against the new variants. But scientists at the center are now involved in monitoring several high-risk pathogens, including bird flu, monkeypox, and hantavirus, a disease spread by rodents. Is it bubonic plague? Is that what we're doing? One early success is the world's first vaccine against Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever, a disease that's spread by ticks and has a fatality rate of 30%. Early stage clinical trials have just started, with 24 volunteers expected to test the jab. The disease is becoming more common in Europe as global temperatures rise and as some travelers have returned to the UK with the infection. Professor Harry said climate change and population shifts are making another pandemic more likely. Well, we're overdue for one too. What we're seeing is a rising risk globally. Some of that is because of things like urbanization, where you may get virus jumping into humans living close by, as we've seen with the bird flu. And then some of this is because of climate change, where you get things like ticks and mosquitoes, moving to where it was previously cold and now becoming increasingly warm. So this is a growing risk agenda, but it's one that we can use our science actively to prevent a human impact. Now, a few things with this, as I mentioned just a moment ago. We are overdue for a pandemic. Historically, statistically, we are definitely overdue for a pandemic. One of the things that's holding that back, and I'm not talking like a lab release pandemic, like the pinko pox, which we can finally say that outright on YouTube, by the way. I'm not talking about something like that. What I am talking about is something made in nature, something that mutated into a human transmissible species that will come back out and give us the next plague. We're due for one. We're overdue for one. It's interesting that they're coming out here and they're throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what vaccines they can develop to take out as we are moving into a very politically contentious year. And it's not just, by the way, in our country. The propaganda that's coming from the Biden admin telling us that, well, we've got the lowest inflation in all the G7 countries, man, so we got a great economy right now. Well, no, we don't. That's, like I said at the time, like saying that we're the prettiest horse in the glue factory. But I digress on that. There's a lot of unrest and turmoil in these other G7 countries that are seeing their pound or euro or whatever other currency that they use in these countries lose value again and again and again, over and over and over again. Putting risk on the globalist uniparty of whatever country that we're talking about at the time. And now all of a sudden we're talking about another lockdown inducing can jump from human to human, holy crap, let's lock down the urban areas pandemic. Some of this I feel is propaganda. Some of this I feel is the scientific community actually trying to get out ahead of diseases that they know are out there. But they do that all the time. My boy says Disease X is going to give it to you. Bring out your dead! Bring out your dead! Oh, not dead yet. Oh, you will be soon. Well, I can't take him if he's not dead. Oh, he's almost there. God, I gotta watch that movie again. That is one movie I can sit and watch over and over again. Alright, let's read a little bit from Forbes on Disease X. From Forbes, what is Disease X? UK establishes VDEC, New Vaccine Research Center, from Bruce Y. Lee. That's the kicking guy, right? On Monday, the term Disease X was trending on Twitter, or X, or whatever social media platform is called these days. But it didn't have anything to do with Twitter's new name or what killed the platform's previously used bird logo. No. The X, after the word disease, was used to emphasize that it's not known which virus or pathogen may be the next to jump from other animals to humans to become a threat and maybe even cause another pandemic. Yeah, remember murder hornets? Whatever happened to murder hornets, by the way? This X marks the one of the spots as to why the UK is establishing the Vaccine Development and Evaluation Centre, situated at the UK Health and Security Agency, Porton Down campus in Wiltshire. As an August 7th announcement from the UK HSA indicated, working with national and international partners, VDEC's skills and resources will enable the development of the vaccines we urgently need to save the lives and mitigate the harm from vaccine-preventable diseases. This includes threats from known and new pathogens, including viruses, a pandemic potential. In other words, this is an attempt to stack the VDEC against future emerging pathogens that may try to wreak havoc amongst humanity. Now, it's not always clear why exactly any term begins trending on social media. Sometimes it's because of the bots. Other times it's due to the bots. And sometimes it's actually due to what people are chatting about that day. In this case, folks may have seen that the UK HSA press release for the establishment of the VDEC included the phrase preparing to tackle disease X. And talk of the phrase may have led disease X to trend, which could have been a bit disconcerting to some. Yeah, especially going into a contentious election year. So Forbes is trying to downplay this as best as they can, but even still, they won't give up on the pinko pox. CNN bringing back the classic. As a summer wave of the pinko pox hits the US, questions about vaccines, quarantine, and testing are back. You know, I've never taken one of these tests, by the way. I've had it. And I know I did. Body aches for 5 days. Spiked fever that could never go down, and basically wanting to do nothing but sleep for those 5 days. Gave me a nice week off of work, but other than that. From Amanda Musa. The pinko pox is on the rise again as the world approaches the 4th virus season since the pinko pox arrived on the scene. CDC shows a slight increase in hospital admissions, emergency department visits, and positive COVID tests, although some not nearly as high in the past summers. Summer travel, unrelenting heat that drives people indoors, and weakened immunity to the virus may all be to blame for this increase in the pinko pox activity rather than an infectious new variant. Experts say it's impossible to know what the fall and winter virus season may hold, but there are still tools to get us through the small summer surge and prepare for the months ahead. What do you want to bet that there's going to be a lockdown right before the economy crashes? Take your bets. The COVID is not going anywhere, so doctors say it's best to protect yourself against the virus the same way you would the flu, by getting vaccinated. Of course they do. Moderna and Pfizer are both working on the updated pinko pox jabs targeted to the XBB strains, subvariants of the Omicron, the Omicron variant. Pfizer has said the new shot could be approved by November, and vaccines are expected to be available in late September and early October. Dr. Peter Chin Hong, an infectious disease expert at UC San Francisco, says if you are over the age of 65 or have a weakened immune system and you have no recent immunity to the pinko pox, you should not wait to get the updated COVID-19 jab. The bivalent booster currently being offered will provide sufficient immunity. People who get the existing booster will then need to wait weeks or months before getting the updated booster, expected to be released in the fall. Dude, I got it. Somebody get me an invoice. The invoice that the U.S. federal government was given from Pfizer and Moderna. I want to know how much of our taxpayer dollars are going into this. And how much of that is getting kickbacks to doctors to say, you gotta go take it. Come on. People say it's all about control, it's about a tracking device, it's about this, it's about that. Dude, it's about the money. But Pfizer showed a record profit. I keep saying Pfizer, and I'm saying it wrong on purpose, by the way. I know the P is silent. But it's just, and I've been watching King of the Hill videos on YouTube over the weekend, and I remember when they found out that Bill was part of the SEAL program, not the Navy SEAL program, but the enhanced soldier, trying to basically mutate the American soldier into a walrus or a seal. So grow the hair all over their body and put on the extra layer of blubber and etc. And Dale went through Bill's unredacted medical files from the government and said, yes, I see that for many years, Bill, they were giving you doses of the deadly drug placebo. I think it's made by the Pfizer Corporation. And every time I see Pfizer's name on the screen, that is the first thing that goes through my head still to this day. I would probably go and get it right now if I hadn't been boosted recently, he says, adding that immunity to any pinko-pox strain puts older adults and the immunocompromised at an advantage over the virus. The same applies to children who have never been vaccinated or who have not been vaccinated recently, according to Dr. Adam Ratner, a pediatric infectious disease specialist at the New York University and a member of the Committee on Infectious Diseases and the American Academy of Pediatrics. So, as I've said from the very start, from the very beginning of this, I do not look down at anybody who wants this. And I never have. If you want this thing, go get it. If you don't get it. If you want this thing and you don't have a ride to get to your appointment, and I live somewhere close by that I can do that, you call up your old buddy Jay Edgar and I will bring you to get that. The only catch is you are not allowed to pressure me to get it. That's been my stance on this thing from the beginning. I was a big fan of the Right to Try Act under the Trump administration because, yeah, no matter whether it's FDA approved or not, if you want to go out and try a medical procedure and put whatever you want into your body, that is on you. That is your thing. I am personally not going to. But I will help, again, if anybody else wants to get the thing, I'll bring them right there to do it. That's between you and your doctor and the person that's giving you the holy jab. That's always been my stance on this. All right, we got a few here on presidential politics that I want to do. And very shortly we will get into the Trump stuff. All right, from Reuters. Exclusive, DeSantis' biggest donor says he won't give more money unless changes are made. From Alexandra Ulmer. Hotel entrepreneur Robert Bigelow, who used to sell his services as an escort in Europe. No, it's probably not the same guy. The biggest individual donor to a group supporting Ron DeSantis' presidential bid told Reuters on Friday he will not donate more money unless the Florida governor attracts new major donors and adopts a more moderate approach. A comment by Bigelow, who gave $20 million to the pro-DeSantis Never Back Down super PAC in March, underscored donor concerns about the Florida governor's struggling campaign, which has been unable to make a dent in the former president's huge lead for the 2024 nomination. He does need to shift to get moderates. He'll lose if he doesn't. Extremism isn't going to get you elected, Bigelow said in an interview, adding that he had communicated these concerns to DeSantis' campaign. When asked which specific policies Bigelow did not support, Bigelow cited only DeSantis signing an April bill passed by a Florida legislature banning abortions after 6 weeks, a move that came after Bigelow had donated $20 million. Bigelow said he would not donate more money for now, not until I see that he's able to generate more on his own. I'm already too big a percentage, Bigelow said. A lot of these donors are still on the fence. Bigelow, the founder of Vegas-based Bigelow Aerospace, said he wasn't waiting for an exact fundraising figure, but that it's going to be a lot. In a statement to Reuters, a spokesperson for the DeSantis campaign, Brian Griffin, said they were grateful to the supporters and donors who gave to them the capacity to compete for the long haul without addressing Bigelow directly. And that's going to be the problem with DeSantis. The thing with DeSantis, and it's interesting to see where and why this goes the way that it does is that under first term DeSantis as governor, Ron ran basically as a Trump clone, going out and coming out swinging at his enemies, trying to stay on to the culture war side of things, but staying populistic, understanding the fact that a large swath of his voters and his voting base were largely Florida Democrats. I mean, Florida used to be a bellwether purple and a purple-leaning blue state up until like 2018. And I don't know if it's because the RNC told him that this is what he has to do, or if he came to this conclusion on his own. But he tried to get too hard into the culture war, and he tried to pull the Evangelo-Con hard right base that already isn't going to go for the Democrats or stay home. The vote red vote red or we'll all be dead crowd. It's not vote blue. Vote red or we'll all be dead. He's trying to get and hold on to those votes and pull those away from Trump. Understanding, or not understanding, I should say, the fact that he needs those Trump voters to win. Part of the issue with Ron is that I think he knows he can't out-Trump Trump. And I think the issue at hand was he was coming back to try to pull the Evangelo-Con voters, the Republican faithful in the primary, with the hopes that everybody who voted Republican in 2020 would come back and do the same for DeSantis in 2024. That's not going to be the case. Partially because those people did not come over to the Republican Party to have a boring old warmongering Evangelo-Con. In fact, if Jeb had been the nominee, I think most of those people would have just stayed home, and we'd have President Hillary. So you've got a divide and conquer strategy that is going to bite you in the ass in the general. I don't think DeSantis got it, and I don't think it's because... I mean, he's been a good governor. It's the fact that I don't think he can get out of his own way. But it's telling that his biggest donor is getting ready to go back and pull out too. The War Walrus, the mustache himself, John Bolton. In a second Trump term, we'd almost certainly withdraw from NATO. Okay, anybody who supported Trump is looking at this and listening to themselves and saying, okay, what's the downside of this argument? Which I can actually see downside of this argument, but I think that the whole deal needs to be renegotiated and NATO needs to start pulling their own as well. But this is from Nick Robertson. Former Trump admin National Security Advisor War Walrus had harsh words for the former president, calling his foreign policy erratic and ineffective. Oh, Donald Trump really doesn't have a philosophy as we understand it in political terms, Bolton said on the Thursday interview of the Hills show News Nation. He doesn't think in policy directions when he makes decisions, certainly in the national security space. It's all connected on how things benefit Donald Trump, and not how many troops that we're going to go put into the Middle East to spread Christianity by force if necessary. I added that last part. Bolton called the deal with the Taliban that led to the U.S. withdrawal a disastrous mistake. Oh shit. The architect of the Afghanistan war thinks the withdrawal was a mistake. Who could have seen that coming? And said that his dealings with Iran fell short. He also said Trump threatens the U.S. relationship with NATO. In a second Trump term, we'd almost certainly withdraw from NATO, he said, but that, by the way, would not be on NATO's choice. That's the part that Bolton doesn't tell you. That would be a weird withdrawing with NATO coming in screaming, "Come back! We don't have enough military. We don't spend enough money on our military to do it. Much of the credit Trump gets for foreign policy victories in the eyes of Republicans are misplaced, Bolton claims. Again, the one president in modern history that didn't start any new wars being run against by John Bolton? Oh, you don't say. Those who make these claims about what Trump did in his first term don't really understand how we got to the places we did, because many of the things that they now give Trump credit for, we wanted to go in the opposite direction. I'm still not going to vote for him because of the spending. But I'm going to tell you right now, if John Bolton is standing against Donald Trump, that is probably a pretty good reason for me to come back and say, hey, maybe let's give this guy another chance. But again, as I've said numerous times, when the Democrat Party turned pro-war, I stayed anti-war. Bolton again going on, warning that prosecuting Trump is like playing Russian roulette, and it could backfire big time, from Chris Enlow. Republican John Bolton warned Thursday that sending former President Trump to trial is a form of Russian roulette that may backfire in a big way. On Thursday, Trump was arraigned in federal court on 4 new criminal charges. We know those. While a court date's not yet been set for the trial, Bolton told CNN anchor Jake Tapper that prosecuting the former president is risky, no matter how you cut it. I think it's the right thing to do, because he wouldn't start a war when I told him to, but it's a modified form of Russian roulette, Bolton declared. If Trump is convicted on one or both of the federal cases, I think that will turn things upside down. I think he could be denied the Republican nomination. He'd certainly lose the election. But if he's acquitted or a hung jury results, which I think would be understood by most people as being the equivalent of acquittal, I think that he would get the Republican nomination. He could quite possibly win the election on the back of that. Is this queued up? No. That's playing right from the beginning. We're not going to do that one. The risk is real, according to Bolton, that if Trump is not convicted, he will be emboldened and empowered. His lawyers don't have to prove anything, because he's innocent until proven guilty, by the way. They simply have to induce reasonable doubt in the minds of one or more jurors to get a hung jury, Bolton said. And if people think he's being railroaded, which he is, if they don't believe the prosecution's case, or they believe whatever case Trump puts on, and this results in a hung jury in either of the 2 federal cases, I think we're in for real trouble, he added. Again, with the quiet part being, because the next Republican won't go start a new war. If the war walrus is against him, I think he's worth at least a second look. I probably still won't vote for him. Too much money. Too much spending. And too much spending on the back of, hey, if you don't pass these omnibus bills the way that we want to, you might lose re-election. We can't risk that again, folks. RFK Jr. making headlines. It's like Ohio's got some tornadic activity going on too. If you're in Ohio, be safe. Although Ohio doesn't exist, so I don't know how you could be. We might bypass some of the presidential stuff for just a moment, because I am intrigued right now. But that is taking forever to load up. Car crashes in the second floor home. Driver hospitalized. Yeah, I'm going to need some more on that one. But let's read about RFK Jr. first, while we wait for that one to load up. Democratic presidential hopeful and environmental lawyer Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is suing YouTube and its parent company Google. He claims they're engaged in a censorship campaign in conjunction with the Biden admin after several videos and comments of his were taken down. The content, which included a speech that, as well as multiple interviews with well-known right-leaning media personalities, calls the safety of vaccines into question. During a now-removed episode of Rogan's podcast, RFK Jr. voiced or supported claims about vaccines having adverse side effects, such as an increased risk of cardiac arrest and death. What do you think? Should social media platforms censor presidential candidates? Do you really need big tech censors to decide what you should hear? Well, they shouldn't, but they're going to. Or would you prefer to be treated as a competent adult who can listen to various viewpoints and come to his own conclusions? Google says its company policy to remove false claims about vaccines and medical organizations have confirmed to be safe. A spokesperson called the lawsuit meritless. Was there not a clause, and I don't know if this is actually the case or not, but was there not a clause in this where presidential candidates and public officials got latitude against that to keep what it was that they said in the public record? Which I don't know if that's the case, because remember, when I live streamed the Trump speech, I got a strike on my YouTube channel because he had to get up in Milwaukee and say, won the election, more votes than ever before. Biden admin totally did something I can't say on YouTube. Unless it's coming from Fox 6 Milwaukee, which, by the way, had the exact same speech. I love how they dinged me for a Trump speech, and Fox 6 Milwaukee had the exact same speech in its entirety. No strikes. And it stayed up. Isn't that funny? Alright, I gotta see what's happening here. I'm intrigued. Car crashes into second floor home, driver hospitalized from Local 12. A driver was hospitalized after the car flew into the second floor of a home in Pennsylvania. According to the Junction Fire Company, the accident happened Sunday in Decatur Township. Crews said the vehicle left the roadway and crashed into a resident's second floor, causing substantial damage. Yes, but how? The driver was sent to Geisinger Lewiston Hospital for their injuries, while officials helped stabilize the home by laying a tarp over the top of it in case of severe weather. Yeah, it's going to take just a little bit more than that. You've taken out 1, 2, 3 of the load-bearing members, and probably substantially weakened several more around this area. That house is coming down, you guys. I hate to tell you this. But they don't tell me how. That's what I wanted to know, is how the car left the road and got 15 feet in the air. I'm almost disappointed that they didn't explain this in this article. That's what I was looking forward to. Alright. More on the presidential race for Biden's economy from the Blaze mega-rich leftist. Joyless Behar actually says economy is booming. People are having an easier time putting bread on the table in defense of Biden. Well, yeah, it's because they can't go back out and buy anything else right now. From Dave Urbanski. Okay, true story. And I'm doing well, partially because of some overtime. I'm doing fairly well in finances for this coming month. But I still, after paying all my bills this month, obsessively looked at my bank account to make sure that I could make a purchase of $30 for some new t-shirts. Which should be coming, usually takes 3 to 6 weeks. But I've got new t-shirts coming from Once Upon a Tea. You unfortunately can't get them anymore because the designs ended at 2 o'clock Central Time today. No, 1 o'clock Central Time today, rather. I haven't looked to see what the new designs are yet today. But I got 2 of them. And those designs are gone forever. But yes, Joy Behar, go on and tell me how more Americans are doing better under this economy. Joyless Behar, who reportedly earns $7 million annually as a co-host on The View, said on Friday's program that the economy is booming and that people are having an easier time putting bread on the table, in a passionate defense of President Biden. He's still not going to screw you, Joyless Behar. He might sniff you. Yeah, popular NASCAR driver suspended for indefinitely for liking a meme about Floyd. That's going to be for things I hate, by the way. Here's her stunning take on Biden's performance. Do we have a video of this, by the way? Let me refresh this quick. No, just a quote.
Well, everything
Joe Biden, let me just say something about Joe Biden.
Oh, we do have video. Good, because I don't think I can pull that raspy voice for that long. Yeah, DM Ryan put it right back. Yeah, Americans are having an easier time putting bread on the table because it's the only thing they can buy is bread. Thank you, DM Ryan. Alright, where did it go? There we go.
Well, everything
Joe Biden, let me just say something about Joe Biden. According to what I'm observing, the economy is booming.
Yeah.
Inflation is down. The stock market is doing well. People are having an easier time putting bread on the table, etc. He doesn't seem to be getting the credit for that. Only 41% approval. Is it because they think he's old? Because I don't see anything else they can point to with him particularly.
Well, it's a question for Democrats.
But no, it's a question for you, really, because you said you would not vote
she's not
for
voting.
Biden.
No, I'm not.
No, but you said you would not vote
We're talking about my
for
vote,
Biden.
one vote.
Every vote counts, and your vote counts, and I'm going to say it to you again, but I know you don't want to hear it.
Why
Writing in a candidate
why is
that you
your
one of you at a time, please.
Why is your candidate not doing better with Democrats? That's who he needs to win.
but again,
and moderate
Because they
swing
think
voters.
he's old. That's why.
No,
I mean,
that you're
Trump is.
no, listen.
But he's not.
Democrats,
Listen,
you have
I am
to
the
vote
same
for
age
your
as
country.
Joe Biden is not doing poorly because I won't vote for Joe Biden. Let me just make that abundantly clear.
You have to, at one point,
You know, you
put
guys.
country
Can I just?
before your party.
Oh, it's chaos.
All right. RCP ran with Behar's claims and commenters were aghast. Well, Joy Behar's let them eat cake moment. Bread on the table is probably all the average folks can afford these days, just like DM Ryan said, by the way. Must be nice to be a dried-up communist, raking in 7 figures for doing nothing but spewing lies, propaganda, and censorship on behalf of the Democrat Party's communist dictatorship, another commentator declared. This woman is a joke, another commenter said. I'm retired and on a budget. The price of gas has doubled in the past 3 years at my gas station. My grocery bill is 25% higher, and the cost of other services is a minimum of 20% higher. And she thinks I'm having an easier time putting bread on the table. This is a prime example of Democrat thought. The problem is, it's not true. Was this recorded in 2020? Another commentator asked. It certainly bears no resemblance to the Xi regime's record on economy. Of course, putting Xi Jinping's name next to Biden's name. So, let them eat cake. That's a perfect metaphor for that too, by the way. All right. From the Daily Wire. Need to win. Powerful Iowa evangelical leader expresses his doubts about Trump, which I've got the tweet up here. Or the X, not the tweet. Let's read about this a bit first from Hank Berrien. Iowa evangelical leader Bob Vander Plaats, president and CEO of the Family Leader, has voiced strong concerns about former President Trump being the 2024 presidential nominee. Vander Plaats, who received enormous influence in Iowa, has expressed his desire not only for the eventual nominee to act in a dignified way, but also his worries about how to win over younger generations who will be voting for decades to come. Let's get this in a direct quote here. Commenting back from Todd Starnes. I think it's great when candidates attend church. Many never Trump Republicans were upset because Trump was not a frequent churchgoer. So where does the DeSantis family worship back in Florida, and how often do they attend? That's meaningless in and of itself. And I know it's partially for me, but it's because I don't look to my political betters as my religious leaders. But Vanderplaat's taking this and going, the problem people of faith have with Donald Trump isn't church attendance. It has everything to do with the fruits of the spirit. For example, F-bombs and mocking people with disabilities, which is a lie, by the way. You can be a statesman while being a bold leader. That is a fair assessment, but to bring in the reporter thing, that has been debunked over and over and over again. And yet they keep dragging it the F back out. I realized the irony that I was about to drop the F-bomb after Vanderplaats criticized the former president of using the F-bomb. On Saturday, Vanderplaats also voiced concerns about Trump signing the CARES Act into law. Yes, that's a big problem that I have with him. That's something I'll agree with Vanderplaats on. In March of 2020, which included $400 million in funding for new Pinko Pox-related election measures. His concerns came after fellow Iowa evangelical and prominent podcast host Steve Deese wrote, "There it is. Trump funded the very ballot harvesting schemes Democrats used to steal the last election, which they didn't do because it was the freest and fairest election in history. Honk honk." I know YouTube is going to go back and retro every video that says something about election fraud, by the way. So in spite of the fact that we can say it now on YouTube, I'm still not going to. This and more is why Trump supporters are looking for another candidate. The facts aren't lining up with the repetitive rhetoric. This is the hashtag swamp. Yeah, but Deese, the problem is that it's only the evangelical side of this that's being driven away from him. His supporters look at him like a religious figure. I've criticized this numerous times, but it's the reason that you're not going to pull them across and put them behind evangelical DeSantis. Because they didn't leave the Democrat Party. Because thrice divorced Trump was a very religious man. They left it because the Democrat Party left them behind. And I'm sorry to tell you this, but if you evangelicals could get your head out of your ass for a second and see that, it would be much, much easier to get a candidate across the finish line that wasn't Trump, that has a chance of winning. It's like the hardest thing for me to look at when I see these evangelicals run out and do this over and over again. It's the fact that they think that we should put up Jesus is my running mate, evangelical Republican X, for lack of a better term for this, and then expect everybody who voted Republican in 2020 to come back out and vote Republican again for evangelical Republican X. Jesus is my running mate, Republican X. Alright. A video that I grabbed here for you guys. Cheryl Rex on presidential politics. Mother of Lance Corporal Dylan Marola. Let's listen to Cheryl Rex instead of me paraphrasing her.
When Joe Biden, our elected president, entered the room, when he approached me, his words to me were, my wife Jill and I know how you feel. We lost our son as well and brought him home in a flag-draped coffin. My heart started beating faster, and I started shaking, knowing that their son died from cancer and they were able to be by his side. Also wondering how someone could honestly, be so heartless to say he knew how I felt a little over 24 hours and learning of my son's death. After this encounter, I have never had any personal correspondence, nor has my son been honored or his name spoken by this commander-in-chief or his administration on what I feel is because of their failures and poor planning to exit our troops from Afghanistan.
Good. Hold their feet to the fire. And one thing that the Biden admin needs to understand in all this is because they are commander-in-chief, they do not deserve the respect. Just based on the fact that they're the commander-in-chief of the military. They have to earn it just the same as everybody else does. And they're not doing a very good job of it right now. So, very moving speech. Thank you, Cheryl Rex, for that. Let's talk about the Elon. Elon Musk offers to pay legal bills for people unfairly treated by employers over Twitter use. From Euronews.next. The billionaire's offer to fund legal bills has raised eyebrows amongst those who were fired from Twitter following his takeover. Elon Musk, the billionaire owner of X, the social media platform formerly known as Twitter, has offered to pay the legal fees for people who were unfairly treated by their employer due to their activities on the platform. If you were unfairly treated by your employer due to posting or liking something on this platform, we will not fund. Well, we'll fund your legal bill. He posted to his 151.9 million followers. He added, there was no limit to the amount he would fund. Many of the replies to Musk's tweet were from parody or impersonation accounts with verified blue ticks, which can now be bought for about $8 or 7.29 euros a month. When he was in the process of buying the social media platform, Musk described himself as a free speech absolutist. Yeah, we got proof that that wasn't true, leading to fears among some activists that the platform may become more open to hate speech. Many accounts that were permanently banned or suspended under the previous ownership of Twitter were restored, including that of former US President Donald Trump, who was kicked off the platform for tweets deemed to be at risk of inciting violence related to the January 6th Selfie Fest. The Center for Countering Digital Hate said Musk lawyer Alex Spiro sent a letter accusing the organization of making a series of troubling and baseless claims that appear calculated to harm Twitter generally, and its digital advertising business specifically. CCDH called the legal threats a brazen attempt to try to hide the truth about his own failures, adding, "We stand by our research, billionaires can't bully us." Well, it'll be interesting. I've got some more things on him later, but unfortunately I don't think that we're going to get to them based on what we still have to go through. Because, like, the full remainder of this, all the way up to here, is all Trump trial news. Some of it we're going to skip over, but still, 45 minutes plus live chat. I don't think we're going to get through everything. One of the things that was brought up with Elon's offer here was the lovely and talented Gina Carano. And I'm not just saying that because of my crush on her, obviously. Tara Bull says Gina Carano played a fan favorite Star Wars character on The Mandalorian until she was abruptly fired by Lucasfilm after a tweet questioning the efficacy of the vaccine. If anyone deserves help with legal fees, it's definitely Gina Carano. Which, given the fact that she's probably paying legal fees to Shapiro, which cannot be cheap, I would say yes, she would be in need of them. Daily Wire with an op-ed. Following up on this, will Elon Musk fight Disney on Gina Carano's behalf? From Christian Toto. The list of people punished for sharing the wrong opinion on social media keeps growing. NASCAR just suspended driver Noah Gragson, which I have that slotted up for things I like and things that I hate, for Thursday, for liking a cruel meme tied to George Floyd. We'll be talking about that on Thursday. It's part of a new normal, where select views, either unkind or deemed politically unacceptable, crush someone's career, asked Justine Sacco how that works. Her 2013 cancellation over a bleakly comic tweet is considered a pivotal point in modern culture. Now Elon wants to do something about it, which we read the quote already. Musk is one of the world's richest people, but even his deep pockets could take a hit from the declaration. Many people have faced punishment for their digital actions. The cases we hear about likely represent the tip of the proverbial iceberg. One of the most prominent victims of the cancel culture quickly weighed in on the matter. That is one Gina Carano. She does, of course. Even the liberal film site MovieWeb said as such. The Terror on the Prairie star lost her gig on Disney Plus's The Mandalorian because of her social media views didn't align with other woke bosses. Carano questioned the pandemic lockdowns on protocols, poked fun at the 21st century pronoun use, and infamously compared elements of modern culture to 1930s Germany. Yes, I remember that. Her co-star Pedro Pascal also made Nazi comparisons on social media, but in a much crueler fashion. He kept his gig. Disney fired Carano, who was promptly offered a deal with the Daily Wire. Well, I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing Carano at least get some justice for that. Unfortunately, I think it is too late to bring her back onto The Mandalorian. Partially because I don't know if we're getting a season 4 of that or not, because I haven't seen it yet. But from what I've heard, season 3 was just... I saw season 1 and season 2. I liked season 1 and season 2. I know season 3 exists, I just haven't sat down to watch it because, again, most people are telling me that it went... and there's no Gina Carano, so... what do I have a reason to watch it for? But we'll see what happens with that. Okay, breathe. Gotta do it. It's one of the most election influencing thing out here, and it's what independents are going to carry into 2024 when they go into that voting booth on November 5th of next year. Alright, let's do this. From CNBC to start with, Trump counterclaim against Elizabeth Jean Carroll dismissed. DA can get deposition from Dan Mangan. Remember, probably about 5 weeks ago, and I said that this wasn't going to go anywhere. But our friends and the Trump campaign team and the Trump legal team said, you know what, we're going to go and file a countersuit against E. Jean Carroll for saying that I still raped her after the jury said that it was only sexual assault. Which, now that the judge has said, oh, well, sexual assault is the colloquial legal version of rape. I knew this was coming. In fact, I'm a little surprised it didn't come out quicker. Also need to get the live chat up here. I might be muted and I don't know about it. Alright, this is from Dan Mangan. A federal judge on Monday dismissed a defamation counterclaim by Donald John Trump against the writer E. Jean Carroll in her pending lawsuit that accuses the former president of defaming her after she wrote that he raped her. Lewis Kaplan in a separate order made Monday, ruled that Carroll's lawyers can give the Manhattan DA's office a videotape and a transcript of their deposition of Trump that they took last fall for the lawsuit. That order raises the chance that Trump's sworn testimony in Carroll's case could be used against the former president as part of the DA's pending criminal prosecution. Why? They're completely unrelated. That seems shady, actually. Alvin Bragg charged Trump earlier this year with falsifying business records related to a 2016 hush money payment to porn star Stormy Daniels. That case, in which Trump has pleaded not guilty, is set to go to trial Monday. Okay. I need to understand how this works. First off, I need to know how old Stormy Daniels is before I do this in Trump voice. Age. So she is 44 years. She was born in 79, which means that she is 5 years older than me. Which means that she could not have even gone near a porn set until 3 years after the E. Jean Carroll thing was supposedly happening, because that was in 94, remember? Stephanie Clifford didn't turn 18 until 1997. So, I have trouble understanding how this went down. So, you're in a dressing room in 1994. And you've got the Donald sitting over here holding E. Jean Carroll up against the wall with his fingers doing, well, use your imagination. Saying, oh yeah, do you like that? I know you like that. And you know what? At some point down here, when I go to, I'm president, oh, that's Stephanie Clifford. She's going to be Stormy Daniels. She's going to be a porn star. But I'm going to do it with her in the early 2000s. Yeah, I know. I understand. She's only 15 now. But I bet she's going to be a porn star. And I'm going to pay her off once I'm running for president. Yeah, you like that still? Like, how does this deposition relate? I'm having a problem with this. Can somebody explain this to me? Trump's counterclaim in the Carroll suit focused on what he argued were her false statements, which he alleged badly harmed his reputation a day after a jury verdict in May in her favor for $5 million for sexual abuse and defamation in a related civil lawsuit in the U.S. District Court in Manhattan. Carroll, during a CNN interview, said that she thought in her head, oh yes, he did. Oh yes, he did. After jurors in that case did not find Trump had raped her. In the same interview, Carroll described her encounter in court with Trump's lawyer, Joseph Tacopina, right after the jury verdict, when Tacopina shook hands with her attorney, Roberta Kaplan, who was not related to the judge. Well, Joe Tacopina is very likable. He's sort of like an 18th century strutting peacock, Carroll said on CNN. So he sticks out his hand. First he congratulated Robbie, and then he was congratulating people on the team, and as I put my hand forward, I said, he did it and you know it. And then we shook hands and I passed on. And of course, when the judge came out and said, oh, well, sexual abuse can be considered as rape, I knew that this was getting thrown out. Still, like, again, why does something that happened 3 years before Stormy Daniels turned 18 have to do with the Stormy Daniels hush money case? Again, I need that one explained to me. Because that one doesn't make any sense. But at least when I had that disturbing image in my head, now the rest of you do too. I pulled this video, which is, by the way, it's August now, so this is about 6 months old, but this came out in the Daily Caller in February. But I wanted to, as we go in and talk about what's happening with the January 6th case, remind everybody that this actually happened. DC Drano calling this breaking undercover video of Pelosi's daughter Alexandra discussing January 6th, where they discuss how January 6ers can't get a fair trial, media overhyped it, needed a new war to distract Americans, J6 had no guns, no plans, just people taking selfies and no actual insurrection. Reminder again that this video actually came out in February, but it bears relevance to what we're about to talk about here. So let's listen to it.
Local media every day, you can't have a fair trial.
Well, the reason, see, I think time is going to remember January 6th differently.
Right.
Right now, people are still, there's two things. Media needs stuff to fill. I mean, if you watch TV on January 6th, it was like January 6th, 24/7. As time goes on, it's going to be less.
Yeah.
And so I think also people are going to lose their jobs. The people that were there are going to lose their jobs. So it's not going to mean anything if you weren't even there and you don't even care.
We need like a war to break out.
Yeah, no, it's right. Okay, I thank you for your time.
Oh, absolutely.
Listen, I really, I know you're not the bad guy. I mean, if there is, I haven't found the bad guy yet, but if there is, I know you're not the bad guy.
I mean, he's like a stereotypical bad guy.
But the thing, why I asked you the question of like, so what was the plan? Is that if there was an insurrection, you were supposed to be in line marching. You're in the military, you know this.
No, that's
you were supposed to have a plan.
Exactly. It's called operations order. You sit down overnight with your soldiers. You go over. All right. You're going to go here. You're going to go in by this side. At this time, we're going to take over this. There's none of that.
If it was an insurrection, it's the sorriest insurrection in the 20th, 21st century ever. No guns. No plan. People taking selfies.
A guy smoking pot.
I love the guy.
Yeah, I like.
Well, we did that. We just went to New Hampshire last week for the guy that just was drinking beer.
My favorite guy.
By the way, I guarantee you that the Trump legal team has this video in their repertoire. But that's your reminder that this happened as we go in and talk about what Judge Chutkan is going to be doing for the next few months. Starting with Newsweek, Judge Chutkan gives Donald Trump a new deadline after Truth Social threat from Anna Commander. District Court Judge Tanya Chutkan on Saturday issued a new deadline for former President Trump to respond to Special Counsel Smith's request for protective order as the DOJ seeks to safeguard evidence and rein in Trump's public comments. On Tuesday, the DOJ issued its latest indictment against Trump, charging him with 4 counts. We know that. Allegedly motivated by his unfounded claims of voter fraud, violently protested the U.S. Capitol building in a failed effort to block President Biden's Electoral College certification. Again, I don't think that was the end goal, because if that was the end goal, we'd probably seen some weaponry. During an arraignment hearing in D.C. on Thursday, Trump pled not guilty to 4 felony charges. Meanwhile, approximately 24 hours later, the former president posted the following to Truth Social, his social media platform: "If you go after me, I'm coming after you." Later on Friday, the DOJ asked Chutkan, who serves as the bench of D.C.'s federal trial court and was appointed by then-President Obama in 2014, to issue a protective order that will limit the information Trump is allowed to share about the case. The Truth Social post was included as part of the DOJ's submission to the court. In a Saturday filing, Chutkan wrote, "It is hereby ordered that by 1700 hours on August 7th, today, defendant shall file response to the government's 10 motion for protective order, stating the defendant's position on the motion." the motion of the ocean. Trump's lawyers then responded on Saturday asking for an extension to file a response to the motion for the protective order from Monday, August 7th to August 10th to ensure counsel has adequate time to prepare a fulsome response. Additionally, a brief extension would provide time for the parties to meaningfully confer and potentially resolve this dispute without the court intervention. Without doubt, the discovery in this case will be extensive and likely to present numerous complex issues. For that reason, it is essential to structure the parties' discussions in a methodical and ideally cooperative manner, Trump's lawyers wrote in their court filing. Chutkan also has a history with Trump, because of course she does. That's why she was chosen in the first place. Issuing a ruling against him nearly 2 years ago in November 2021, the former president lost a bid to withhold documents from the House Unselect Committee that was investigating the events of January 6th. Trump had sued Benny Thompson, the chair of the committee at the time, in an effort to prevent the panel from accessing documents in the National Archives. Trump claimed that those documents were covered by executive privilege, which they were, but Chutkan still ruled against him. In her opinion, Chutkan wrote that Trump's executive authority exists in perpetuity, and that presidents are not kings, and plaintiff is not the president. A Trump spokesperson commented on the former president's post in an overnight statement to Truth Social, and wrote, "The Truth Post cited is the definition of political speech and was in response to Rhino, China-loving, dishonest special interest groups and super PACs like the ones funded by the Koch brothers and the Club for No Growth." Newsweek has reached out to Trump's campaign via email for comment. So, and it does look like this has come and passed. I just want to get a brief look here. I want to see if they did respond to it or not. Oh yeah, security's increased. Looks like they have responded to that, and we will probably have some updates for this tomorrow. So, nothing has been made public yet about it. But because of the Truth Social post from CBS 12 News, prosecutors asked the judge to issue a protective order after Trump post appearing to promise revenge. From the National Desk. The DOJ has requested a federal judge overseeing the criminal case against former President Trump regarding the 2020 election to issue a protective order. What's interesting about this is that there is no such protective order being issued for or requested for Eileen Cannon. And right now I'm actually, or not protective order, but security upgrade for Eileen Cannon, which I am waiting eagerly to see when her address gets leaked, and we start to see protests outside her house. Prosecutors asked the district court judge Tanya Chutkan to issue the order, pointing out Friday's Truth Social post in which the former president said in all caps, "If you go after me, I'm coming after you." The protective order differs from a gag order in that it would limit what information Trump and his team could publicly share in the case. Chutkan gave Trump's legal team until 5 p.m. Monday to respond to the request. His legal team then filed a request to extend the deadline until Thursday and hold a hearing on the order. In a statement Friday after leaving the courthouse, Trump accused the Biden admin of weaponizing the DOJ against a political opponent and criticized the state of the city, which he said was filled with graffiti and broken buildings. So, a few things with this. Now, number one, if I'm Trump's lawyer, I'm smoking right now. Like, carton a day smoking habit, chain smoking habit, if I'm Trump's lawyer right now. But number two, I'm sitting here telling him, dude, don't put out any information about this. That will be bad. And somebody does need to sit down and have the conversation. Now, I think he's smart enough to know what he can and what he cannot release about the case, and what would be devastating to him. For the most part, when I look at something like this, I see a show. They're making a show of it. They're saying that he's too unhinged, that he's going to go out and release everything, and we must shut him up and shut him down, otherwise he's going to do this. Dude, guy is a billionaire. Guy has made his fortune buying and selling the New York City skyline and property around the world. I disagree to a point with Ben Shapiro's assessment of whatever comes in Trump's mind, he goes back and he tweets out. I think he puts teasers out there, but I don't think he necessarily... I think he's got enough legal mind on his head to where he knows, like, okay, if I put this on Truth Social, it'll get a big reaction out of my following. And the crooked media will come out and run with it. But it'll be devastating in my case. I think he knows enough not to do that. Unlike his previous arraignments, Trump's brief statement prior to boarding his plane was the only public remarks he was expected to make on Thursday. Following both of his arraignments in New York and Florida, Trump gave speeches to a crowd of supporters that evening, lamenting the charges and launching into other issues he frequently brings up during speeches and rallies. Which he did that, I believe, on Sunday instead. So I grabbed one from our friends over at NPR, questioning why prosecutors even want a protective order in the criminal case against Trump, which I pointed out earlier was for show, but NPR is going to give the approved narrative as to why they want the protective order. This coming from Joe Hernandez and Juliana Kim. And remember, NPR only gets 10% of its funding from the government and commercial revenue is down. So you have to hit that donate button because, remember, you'll get your mug and, more importantly, you will fund the ability to tell the world that only Republican policy is evil and only Democrat policy is good. And NPR needs our money, comrade, to tell us that. So NPR, remember, is never printing reality. National Progressive Radio, let's see what it is that they have to say. Attorneys for former President Trump have until Monday evening to respond to requests by federal prosecutors for a protective order in the latest criminal case against him. Federal prosecutors are now asking District Judge Tanya Chutkan to issue a protective order in the case. That would bar Trump and his attorneys from improperly using the evidence, which may include sensitive and highly confidential information that prosecutors share with the defense before the trial. Again, I'm pretty sure he knows this already, and this is for show. On Saturday, Chutkan denied a request from Trump's attorneys for more time to respond to the request, leaving them until 5 p.m. Monday to reply and suggest any changes. Chutkan said she would decide whether to schedule a hearing on the proposal after reviewing the defense's response. Protective order. Long before the criminal case goes to trial, prosecutors have to share what's called discovery with the defense. That would include potential evidence, such as grand jury documents and witness statements, and it may contain personal identifying details and other confidential information. Stanford Law School professor David Glansky said protective orders are commonly used in criminal cases to shield sensitive information about investigative tactics, cooperating witnesses, or national security. It is a case-by-case basis by the judge about whether there's a reason to fear that disseminating information could be harmful to the public, to national security, to potential witnesses, he said. Sklansky added that a protective order in this case would not be intended to silence Trump or prevent him from talking about the case, but rather an effort to protect the use of the information that's provided in discovery. Legal experts say a person could receive a warning or be held in contempt of court for violating a judge's protective order. The DOJ says it will protect sensitive information in the case against Trump. In their motion for protective order, Special Counsel Jack Smith and prosecutors Molly Gaston and Thomas Wyndham argue it would allow the Justice Department to release discovery material to the defense quickly and give Trump the expedient access to the information that could be used in his defense. The prosecutor said the order would also shield any sensitive and confidential information included in discovery from public view. That's particularly critical in this case, they argued, because Trump has previously issued public statements on social media regarding witnesses, judges, attorneys, and others associated with legal matters pending against him. If the defendant were to begin issuing public posts using details, for example, grand jury transcripts obtained in discovery here, it could have a harmful, chilling effect on witnesses or adversely affect their fair administration of justice. In this case, the motion reads. Government attorneys say the proposed protective order is consistent with other such orders commonly used in D.C. and is not overly restrictive, and that Trump's legal team could ask the judge to modify it at any point during the case. A Trump campaign spokesperson on Saturday said the Truth Social post is the definition of political speech, not aimed at anyone involved in the election case against him. So, one of the arguments that's being made by the defense at this point is the fact that this will prevent the defense from getting access to the discovery material, which would be illegal. So I don't think Chutkan, even with her hatred of January 6th, the people involved in it or otherwise, would be dumb enough to go and do that. That would be a constitutional violation guaranteeing any conviction overturned at a district court level. That wouldn't even make it to the Supreme Court. But again, when I look at something like this, it's for show. It's to come back out and make the appearance of a gag order and be able to say, hey, we're on the top and we're shutting him up and we're not taking any of this crap. Let's grab one from CNN. Trump attorney says legal team will fight potential protective order in election subversion case, from Sam Fossum. Former President Trump's lawyer in the 2020 election subversion case on Sunday criticized the protective order requested by prosecutors that will put some restrictions on what Trump and his team can do with evidence shared with them. The press and the American people in a campaign season have a right to know what evidence is in this case, provided that this evidence is not protected otherwise, Lauro told CNN's Dana Bash on State of the Union on Sunday. Okay, if that's his position, you need to fire that dude immediately. So we're going to oppose it as we have, he continued. His comments come after Tanya Chutkan on Saturday denied the request from Trump's legal team for an extension of the deadline to respond to the request for a protective order. Trump's lawyers will have to respond by Monday afternoon to the DOJ's proposal. Well, I don't think you're going to get very far. I want to talk about the venue change for a little bit here, starting with a post from Mehdi Hassan. Mehdi Hassan says, to be clear, Trump doesn't want to be tried in a black city by a black jury and a black judge for a crime allegedly committed in that black city to try and deprive black residents in other black cities from having their votes counted. That's it. What a load of garbage, by the way. So we run from the USA Today. Trump calls for judge's recusal, venue change in his 2020 election case, from Ken Tran and Josh Meyer. Former President Trump will ask for the federal judge presiding in this criminal case over his attempts to overturn the 2020 election to recuse herself, along with a change of venue outside the District of Columbia, accusing the judge of being partial against him. There's no way I can get a fair trial with a judge assigned to the ridiculous freedom of speech fair election case, Trump posted on the social media platform Truth Social. Everybody knows this, and so does she. We will immediately be asking for the recusal of the judge on very powerful grounds, and likewise for a venue change out of D.C. The federal judge assigned to Trump's case is known for being one of the tougher judges on the cases involving the January 6 defendants who were part of the Selfie Fest that went into the Capitol. She has delivered harsher sentences for some defendants than what prosecutors requested. In one sentencing, Chutkan described the attack on the Capitol as a very real danger to American democracy. That right there should be disqualifying for this case. I'll read a little bit more of this and I'll go over why. Trump's election case is not the first time Chutkan has dealt directly with the former president. In 2021, Chutkan rejected Trump's claim of executive privilege. We read about this a bit earlier. Chutkan has shown no signs that she plans to recuse herself, because of course she didn't. So it is unlikely Trump will see a different judge. Ty Cobb, Trump's own White House special counsel, was one of several legal analysts familiar with Chutkan who described her as a consummate professional, set to handle the sensitive case with the utmost care. Given her background, Cobb told USA Today Chutkan is likely to do what is within her power to protect the former president's rights as a criminal defendant. I don't believe that. They'll try to disqualify her because she's not the judge they want, but there's no basis for that, so I think that it goes nowhere, Cobb said. See, when I look at something like this, and we have a judicial record of her being harsher on the defendants who've come before her than even the prosecution has requested. Some of them, again, having no jail time suggested, and her saying, we have to make an example out of these people to make sure this doesn't happen again. That, in and of itself, tells me that she's coming into this with a preconceived bias against the defendant. As far as the venue change, I think that is also warranted at this point. And it should be in a state, in a federal district, that is more purple. But regardless, I mean, this whole thing was plastered on television everywhere. I don't know if you can get a fair trial anywhere in this country. I'm going to be completely honest with that. When I bring up purple, like, I was responding to a Mehdi Hassan tweet, and I said, no, it was an Adam Schiff tweet, rather, I'm sorry. I was responding to that saying, because Adam Schiff wants this whole thing to be televised, and I said, okay, well, we'll let you have your little show trial and your pillory, but in exchange, you move this out to a purple district or a red district. But even there, I would say that a red district would be biased in the other direction. And I will concede to that point. But get it in a purple district where there's a likely enough 50-50 chance that you'll have Trump voters and Biden voters. Hopefully 6 of each. Then you will know whether or not both sides have been convincing in their arguments, rather than going into D.C. that voted 93% against the former president, with a 93% chance that you get a 12-person jury that's all wanting to go back and see him put in prison for the fact that he won against Hillary. So I'm going to say right off the bat that both of these are within the realm of reality and reason. Forbes, pointing out the district that Trump wants to get it moved into. Trump wants to move January 6th trial to West Virginia. Here's why that's unlikely. From Allison Durkee. Former President Trump and his counsel have argued the ex-president's criminal case for trying to overturn the election should be moved out of D.C. and to West Virginia, which could have a friendlier jury pool for Trump. But that prospect is unlikely, particularly as judges, including the one overseeing Trump's case, have refused to move January 6th cases in the past, which, again, I think that they should be. Trump's comments came after John Lauro suggested in media interviews Wednesday he wanted the case to move to West Virginia, telling NPR Trump's legal team is looking for a more diverse area that has a more balanced political jury pool, and other Republicans like Ron DeSantis and Lindsey Graham have suggested going to trial in D.C. would be unfair to Trump. Honestly, I think South Carolina or the federal district in Georgia, even though he's facing down a different trial in Atlanta in the state court for that, I would almost say that that district would be more reasonable. Georgia is a very, very purple state right now, which means that pulling a jury pool in Atlanta would be as likely as you can possibly get of going half and half. The Sixth Amendment grants criminal defendants the right to trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which in Trump's case would be D.C., given that's where he conducted his efforts to overturn the election, which is a falsehood, by the way, but regardless, we'll move past that. But it isn't unheard of for some cases to be heard in other courts, like the trial for Oklahoma City bombing suspects in the 90s, which was moved to Colorado. After the court determined there is so great a prejudice against these two defendants in the state of Oklahoma that they cannot obtain a fair and impartial trial at any place. This seems unlikely here, however, as D.C. judges have repeatedly refused to move other cases for January 6 rioters to different courts as the defendants have requested, making similar claims to Trump that any D.C. jury would be so biased against them. So, big number, 69%, that's how much of the vote Trump received in West Virginia in the 2020 election versus only roughly 30% who voted for President Biden. That's a sharp contrast from DC, where Trump received only 5.4% of the vote versus 93% for Biden. The West Virginia's population is also much whiter than DC, because the USA Today has to bring that part up, and has a greater concentration of older residents, demographics which the Washington Post notes typically tend to be more in line with Republicans. Our district court would probably almost be better, although that's in Chicago, so one thing to keep in mind for that. And that one also covers Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan. So, not unheard of, not outside the realm of possibility, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think they definitely want to make sure this happens in DC. Let's do just a little bit more of this. I think we're going to go up to this Pence article, and we're going to have to call it a night for the night here. We've got one from the Daily Wire. Trump attorney defends former president's right to petition federal government in third indictment, from Brandon Dre. Trump's attorney defended the former president's right to petition the federal government under the First Amendment during several media appearances on Sunday. John Lauro joined Trump's legal team to deal with the newest indictment stemming from his alleged efforts. What we have here is political speech where the president is petitioning the government, Lauro said last week. A federal grand jury in D.C. indicted Trump on 4 counts of his alleged involvement in challenging President Biden's electoral college victory. The DOJ charged Trump with conspiracy to defraud the U.S. government, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstruction of an attempt to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiracy against rights. Lauro said he and Trump have argued that the indictment stacked against him is an attack on his First Amendment rights. All the examples in this indictment are core political speech, Lauro said. Every single thing President Trump is being prosecuted for involves aspirational asks. Asking state legislators, asking state governors, asking state electoral officials to do the right thing. In fact, even asking Vice President Pence was protected by free speech. He added none of that was illegal. Jack Smith called the events an unprecedented assault on the seat of American democracy, which means, of course, Democrats' hegemony. It was fueled by lies by the defendant, targeted at obstructing a bedrock function of the U.S. government, the nation's process of collecting, counting, and certifying the results of the presidential election, Smith said. Well, Good luck. It's like you'll have a partial judge and jury, so. If Trump committed a technical violation of the Constitution, it's not a crime, his lawyer says. From Adam Edelman. If former President Trump committed a technical violation of the Constitution, it doesn't mean he necessarily broke any criminal laws. John Laurel, Trump's criminal defense attorney, argued on Sunday on Meet the Depressed. Laurel appeared to signal how he'd defend the former president in a trial that will stem from the 4-count criminal indictment returned last week by a federal grand jury. Pressed by NPC's F. Chuck Todd, which I thought he was retiring from Meet the Depressed. Pressed by F. Chuck Todd about Trump's alleged pressure campaign to get former Vice President Mike Pence to reverse the election, Laurel claimed that Trump and Pence had merely disagreed over whether the vice president could constitutionally take actions that could lead to a presidential election being overturned. A technical violation of the Constitution is not a violation of criminal law, Laurel contended, saying it was just plain wrong to suggest Trump had pressed Pence to break the law. And to say that is contrary to decades of legal statutes, he continued. These kinds of constitutional and statutory disagreements don't lead to criminal charges, Laurel said, and one thing that Mr. Pence has never said is that he thought President Trump was acting criminally. In response to the latest indictment, Pence said he believes that anyone who puts himself over the Constitution should never be president. He said Wednesday that Trump surrounded himself after a 2020 election with crackpot lawyers who told him only what his itching ears wanted to hear. That I won't argue against, by the way. Especially Powell, but I'm pretty sure that Giuliani fucking lost it too. I do think that their cases had merit, by the way. It was, number one, the presentation, and number two, the conspiratorial nature of the way that they were presenting them was what killed a lot of them in court. But like Powell especially was just absolutely sycophantic about it. I was fully prepared to make sure that we heard all the arguments and concerns the members of Congress had brought, Pence said. But because of the selfie fest and because of the assertion by the president and his crackpot lawyers that I could overturn the election, the violence that ensued eclipsed all of that. Pence elaborated on the subject Sunday, saying on CBS News' Face the Nation that Trump, from sometime in the middle of December 2020, began to be told that I had some authority to reject or return voters back to the states. I had no such authority, Pence said. No vice president in American history has ever asserted that authority, and no one ever should. And I got two more here. We're going to do these two. We'll do the canon stuff tomorrow, I think. From the Daily Wire, Pence, Trump entitled to a presumption of innocence, which of course, as an American citizen, that is the case. That is your Fifth Amendment right. It always has. Also, Article 4. But this is from Hank Berrien. Former Vice President Pence maintained that the efforts by some parties to declare former President Trump guilty of charges brought against him before any trial could determine any possible guilt were unfair. I trust myself to the judgment of the American people and to the judgment of history, Ray Spannon told CNN's Dana Bash on State of the Union, adding, I really do believe people see through the agenda of the Democrats. Asked if he'd be willing to testify at Trump's trial if special counsel called him to do so, Pence answered, I have no plans to testify, but look, we will always comply with the law. But look, I want to tell you, I don't know what path of it, this indictment will be. The president's entitled to presumption of innocence. He's entitled to make his defense in court. There actually are profound issues around pertaining to the First Amendment, freedom of speech, and the rest. I'm confident he and his lawyers will litigate all of those things, Pence continued. We lived through the Russia hoax, the president being impeached for a phone call the day after January 6th. Nancy Pelosi tried to distort the 25th Amendment to get us to remove the president, and then to go through a process of impeaching the president of the United States after he left office was just one more effort by the Democrats, Pence noted. I wonder if, because he said specifically, and I don't know what what Laura's path is by this, but a part of me actually sits down and wonders if he would testify for the defense if he was called. And I don't know if he would be or not. I don't know if he would either anyway. If he were subpoenaed, he'd have to by law, but I don't know if he would, just based on the fact that, Trump has done nothing but attack him on Truth Social from the beginning of this entire thing. Which I don't think is the best course of action. Now, me sitting here in my living room attacking Mike Pence for being the evangelical warmonger, Jesus is my running mate candidate that he is completely different from a person who could probably actually use the testimony doing on Truth Social. But that's the difference between me and the former president. The last one we'll do, and then I'll go through and read a little bit of live chat that we had here tonight. Anthony Blinken, in probably one of the most ironic statements I've ever heard. Anthony Blinken, Secretary of State. The United States strongly condemns Russia's conviction of opposition leader Alexei Navalny on politically motivated charges. The Kremlin cannot silence the truth. Navalny should be released. Oh, Blinken. And Blinken got dragged over this too, by the way. Absolutely. We'll look at this one here just to see what the ratio is off of this. 27.4 comments, or 1,000 comments versus 20.1 thousand likes. With 9,778 retweets. And the vast majority of them being quotes as well. He got dragged for this because, we sit here. He says that in Russia, in Soviet Russia, you do not go after political opponents because we say so, but we go after political opponents here. That was a horrible structure of a Yakov-Smirnoff joke. But you get the idea. Frank of Let's Be Frank says, yeah, that's literally what you're doing with Trump. And with that, we close out for the day. Let's have a look at what you guys had to say today, and we'll finish off for the day. Nothing on Rumble. We had actually a pretty good crowd gather on Rumble until I said, I have to deal with a former president and I don't want to. But I think a lot of people were curious about Disease X, definitely. On Instagram, Kara Hawes01 joined briefly. Thank you for that. And on the main chat side, Mr. Scott is here. Welcome. Mogwai reminding me that I was muted. Yes, I will fix that before we get to the audio platform, and I will actually probably fix that for the video platform and re-up that as well. I don't know why, and it happens. It does it on Monday. But when I switch the scene into the news scene, so you guys can see what's on my center screen here, it mutes my microphone sometimes, and I don't know why. Because even like as Mogwai said, I was talking and vocal during the opening speech when I talked about the people that you should be following and everything else. I was on for that, but yeah, when it switched, it muted my microphone, and I have no idea why. Mogwai pointing out, yeah, no, it was the Dow, the Bitcoin, and gas. As soon as you went to the Dow, it muted. I had $30 for a full tank, and I own a Prius. Actually seems a little bit low given what gas prices are, because isn't that usually a 10-gallon tank on a Prius? I didn't think it'd be as low as 7, although, I mean, if you're bringing it down to 10 gallons, you're pushing it a little bit hard, so, okay, maybe. Wynn Resorts will be an interesting earnings report. Yeah, we'll probably be covering that tomorrow. DM Ryan is here. Hi, everyone. Mogwai and Ed. DM Ryan, thank you. Dell's laying off, but I heard the Budweiser PR team is hiring. Mogwai says Mitch McConnell hears you scream turtling and thinks that you're talking about him. Turtle, turtle, turtle. Mogwai with the Lindsey Graham taking over his phone again. Yeah, 70 degrees in Australia for Disease X. Disease X going to give it to you. The Black Death. Oh, gotta love the classics. Bring out your dead. Mogwai says, I miss the days when all we had to worry about was murder hornets and Y2K. Disease X today, self-aware AI tomorrow. I think we're a little ways off on self-aware AI yet, but I think we're a little bit closer than a lot of other people think that we are as well. I think we're somewhere between tomorrow and decades down the road. If I had to give my intelligent timeline on the way that technology is going with AI, I would say we are probably, at good educated guess, self-aware AI, 12 years. 12 to 15 is where I would put it. I think it's going to happen in my lifetime. DM Ryan says, but that's all we can buy is bread. 41%, the most voted for president. Yep, 81 million votes, folks. Silentcaster came in and criticized my use of Twitter. It stands. It's usually one of the best ways to pull information from people directly. And also, again, one of the best video platforms for using when you're streaming, because it happens, but it's very, very rare that they will pop you for copyright for something that's on Twitter. The WWE, by the way, is an exception to that. Mogwai is actually voting for Behar for president. Write-in campaign. DM Ryan says, they're really going to name it Disease X. No, they're not going to name it Disease X, but they don't know which one is going to be the one that causes the next panic pandemic. Mr. Scott says, that video is creepy. She sounds like a crackhead. She really does. They were having a discussion in the Discord. They think that Nancy's daughter looks like a man. I don't know if I would go that far, but definitely there's, I mean, that's a creepy looking person, but I mean, so is Nancy Pelosi. Alright, let's call it a day. A lot of stuff done. A lot less than I thought we were going to get to, but a lot of stuff done, regardless. Whew, well, we had a fantastic day for this today. It was a lot of stuff going on, a lot of stuff happening, and a lot of stuff moving, mostly in the Trump stuff. Unfortunately, and I know we're going to have a big chunk of that tomorrow too. Plus tomorrow we're going to look into what happened in Niger as the dust is starting to settle on that. It does look like the airspace is closed over there, but we will do a more in-depth look at that tomorrow. We might even look at some of the stuff that's happening in Israel tomorrow. I know that'll wake up my my good friend Spartan as we go back and talk about that, but it is going to be all of that and more. We will see what happens in the next 22 hours. Again, reminder, something is in the works right now. I don't know exactly how I'm going to do it or format it yet, but There is something definitely coming up in the works, coming from this channel as well. Go check out all the other channels that I mentioned at the top of the show. People who are great, people who are awesome to listen to, and people who definitely are more like you than the people who wear suits that cost more than your house. Take care. Have a fantastic night. Hug your family. Call your friends. Get some dinner and get some good sleep here tonight. We'll be back here tomorrow for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. Take care. Have a good night. And until tomorrow, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.